It's a pleasure for us to listen now to Sister, I'm sure, THEA Filipovic. She's teaching at the University of Zagreb in one of the most beautiful countries of the world. And we listen to you, Sister. Yes.
Good morning to all of you. I will start directly to my topic. The Church's openness to dialogue with secular society is linked to a renewed understanding of its role in serving humanity, to living and witnessing to evangelical values in society. It is a fundamental attitude in the Church's teaching from the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes, to the teachings of Pope Francis, who is called to the promotion of a culture of encounter and a culture of dialogue that includes not only other religious worldviews but also humanist ones. Dialogue requires an attitude and culture of listening in order to discern and recognize the meaning and the importance of a kerygma in a given time and place. With regard to school and religious education, I will identify two main areas of dialogue and cooperation. The first one is the recognition theory and practice and religious education, and the second one is citizenship education and religious education. Since some other colleagues here talked or will talk about diversity and recognition, I will go on that issue very briefly, and after that concentrate to the issue of citizenship education. As one of transdisciplinary concepts that is becoming an analytical tool in various fields of science, recognition is also starting to be received in theology as a stimulus for new interpretation of the Christian faith in the context of the questions that individuals and society are asking today. Therefore, in the field of religious education, it is important to consider not only the pedagogical and social, but also the theological importance of recognition as one of the essential features of Christian faith. From the theological point of view, there is a fourth dimension that can be added to the three areas of recognition identified in social philosophical theories, namely to self-respect, self-confidence and self-esteem, and that is self-acceptance resulting from recognition. It refers to a kind of recognition which is not dependent on any conditions and social struggles. It is about their limits, the deficiencies and the fragmentary nature of human existence. It is about a failure and guilt which indicate a need for recognition which is far beyond what human beings can grant. It is about an unconditional recognition that precedes any social recognition and is independent of it or a recognition that we can achieve on our own. Relying on Veronica Hoffman's indication on the narrative of the so-called prodigal son as a paradigm of Christian theory of recognition as a gift, it is possible to observe that it includes emotional affection, substantial recognition as a son, and social recognition, arranging a feast. This unconditional recognition meets humans' endless need for recognition as well as his or her limited ability to provide or achieve it by himself or herself. I will pass now to the relationship between citizenship education and religious education. In recent decades, we have witnessed a growing interest in the relationship between religion and citizenship, particularly in terms of promoting the common good, supporting democracy, and protecting human rights. This interest is evident in educational policies and reflected in various documents and literature. Factors such as increased migration, growing cultural diversity and pluralism, expanding internationalization and globalization all raise important questions regarding peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, social justice, and democratic participation in individual societies in the globalized world. These questions have been intensified by the dominance of the technocratic paradigm, the digital revolution, anthropological transformations, the development of biotechnology, ecological destruction and manipulation, the economic crisis exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic, new forms of colonialism, the increase in political tensions and armed conflicts, and the struggle of the underprivileged for equality and participation. As religion continues to play a significant role in shaping and challenging many of these dynamics, the need to explicitly include it in discourse is highlighted in order to promote thoughtful dialogue and understanding across different worldviews, ethical beliefs, and religious traditions. The challenge of today's world and society are also present in education and schools. This is particularly reflected and evident in citizenship education. Traditionally, citizenship or civic education has focused on the political domain and national citizenship. However, the global discourse on human rights, global citizenship, and global civil society has broadened the goals of citizenship education from democracy to human rights, social issues, and civil society, and from national to global citizenship. The global dimension of citizenship has also deepened the concept of citizenship education to encompass broader social, economic, cultural, and environmental issues. This evolution can be observed both in the objectives and in the name of the subject or field of education. The International Commission on the Future of Education points out, during the 20th century, public education was essentially aimed at supporting national citizenship. Today, however, as we face grave risks to the future of humanity and the living planet itself, we must urgently reinvent education to help us address common challenges. Western European and American literature has traditionally used the term civic education. The Council has recently introduced the concept of education for democratic citizenship and human rights. The Council of Europe's Committee of Ministers explains the relationship. Education for the democratic citizenship and human rights education are closely interrelated and mutually supportive. They differ in focus and scope rather than in goals and practices. Education for democratic citizenship focuses primarily on democratic rights and responsibilities of active participation in relation to civil, political, social, economic, legal, and cultural spheres of society, while human rights education is concerned with a broader spectrum of human rights and fundamental freedoms in every aspect of people's lives. In recent decades, religion has re-emerged in the public domain as an important cultural and social factor. After the earlier suppression of the public importance of religion, at least in the West, at least since the 1990s, it has been widely recognized again. The public role of religion is especially reflected about religious education in schools and its connection to citizenship education after the war in the former Yugoslavia, and even more decisively after the terrorist attacks on the United States of America in 2001. This connection has recently stimulated a new reflection on the public and political dimensions of religious education and religious pedagogy. One of the colleagues among us that wrote about that is Bernard Grüner. Reports on citizenship education in European countries show that it usually includes a religious dimension, or if it is taught as a cross-curricular subject, integrated into different school subjects, it includes religious education. Nevertheless, there is a permanent tension between citizenship, secularism, and religion, resulting in a gap between the formal principles and the actual practice of religious and citizenship education. At the theoretical formal level, everything is okay, but at the practical level, it comes to problems. The role of religion in a given society depends on the specific historical and socio-political backgrounds of individual states. Research shows that the impact of religion on human rights is ambivalent. Therefore, there may be an open discrepancy between some forms of religious education and some understanding of citizenship education. Authors exploring the relationship between spirituality and global citizenship have found some inconsistencies in conventional religions and their relationships with citizenship in terms of both contributing to and detracting from pro-social values related to global citizenship. In highly multicultural societies, the authors advocate that religious education as a school subject is best understood as a democratic dialogue with differences, as a compulsory, non-confessional subject about and not into religion, where attention is given to religious diversity, ethics, philosophy, and citizenship education. How to deal with controversial issues. Many of them are in the field of moral questions, moral topics. Is one of the much debated issues related to religious education at the moment. The debate raises the question of how to respect the parents' values and their vision of how certain issues should be presented to their children. One of the authors among us that I cite in this regard is Gaston Aguicosti. As well as views of religious communities and religious authorities on certain issues. Certain effort is needed to reconcile the freedom of education, the rights of individuals to authentic religious development, and the objectives of citizenship education. This leads to a broader discussion and a more complex and varied picture of the relationship between religious and citizenship in today's world. At the same time, democracy nowadays faces many challenges due to growing authoritarianism, which can also be observed within the democratic structures and patterns. Many authors who are engaged in research on post-colonial, post-authoritarian, and post-social societies also deeply question the uncritical application of Western ideals of democratic citizenship education in non-Western countries. Democratic ideas and practices that exist in non-Western cultures have not been included in citizenship education. More specifically, they have been suppressed by Western domination. Therefore, many non-Western cultures perceive the concept of citizenship, secularism, human rights, and democracy as an imposition of Western interests rather than ways of ensuring equality and fairness for all before the law, which should be the main goal of citizenship. In Croatia, citizenship education is also included in the curriculum of religious education in schools. The curriculum of Catholic religious education in Croatia explicitly states how the subject relates to citizenship education as a cross-curricular theme. The curriculum of religious education in primary schools and gymnasiums recognizes the link between religious education and citizenship education in reflecting on the importance of building responsibility and solidarity for common life, on the meaning, importance and influence of moral principles and norms, and other types of truths that affect the quality of life of the individual and the community. According to the curriculum, the outcomes of religious education that contribute to the outcomes of citizenship education are related to the following themes. I take this from the curriculum. Different forms of eternal slavery and freedom, the dignity, value and role of the student, the role of religion in resolving tensions and conflicts between people, actions toward people with different needs, building quality interpersonal relationship in one's environment, rules of behavior in class and school, consequences of breaking the rules for the individual and the whole community, responsibility for one's own behavior, the relationship between the Decalogue and fundamental human rights, the Christian image of human dignity, the meaning and value of work for human life, and co-responsibility for a just and peaceful coexistence in society. There are obviously many topics that are common to religious education and citizenship education. Students are expected to engage in activities that contribute to the realization of the stated values and to cooperate with other students in carrying out appropriate activities and projects. In their annual implementation plans, religious education teachers regularly list the above-mentioned outcomes related to citizenship education, expressing them in the form of the expected student's competence. For example, the student actively participates in the protection of human rights. The student recognizes the role of institutions and organizations in protecting of human rights. The student promotes the right of ethnic minorities. The student is actively involved in the development of the community. The student promotes the quality of life in the community. The student promotes the right to work and labor rights. The student promotes the fight against corruption. The student volunteers in the community. Religious education touches on many topics important for citizenship education, such as the values and principles of common life, the common good, equality, justice, solidarity, peace, the protection of human and civil rights of all, especially the rights of the weak, responsibility toward the created world, etc. An analysis conducted in Croatia in 2016, which examined the then experimental program of citizenship education and the program of Catholic religious education, showed that both subjects had between 42 and 64% of highly compatible outcomes and content, depending on the individual grade of primary and secondary education. The same can be said about the current Catholic religious education curriculum. The aspects of citizenship education included in religious education classes are mostly related to the promotion and protection of human rights and community life and values, and less to the political sphere and issues of democracy. Today's challenges for religious education arising from the need to highlight its contribution to citizenship education offer new incentives for the Christian message to bring the richness and faith into the context of new social issues and cultural changes. At the same time, the Christian faith raises its own questions and offers new perspectives on the subjectives and content of citizenship education. Religious education offers a specific perspective based on an inclusive Christian anthropology, on the intrinsic social dimension of faith and the Christian vision of the peaceful, just and inclusive world. This perspective is based on the relational understanding of God in Christian theology and the relational understanding of human beings in Christian anthropology. It is visible in the overall concept of faith and the deep connection between love of God and love of neighbor in the biblical faith and Christian tradition. The theological perspective on human rights as a specificity of religious education is based on the living brotherhood and sisterhood and as the essence of Jesus' message, on the basis of which Christianity from its beginnings has shown an egalitarian universalism that no longer distinguishes between Jews and Greeks, free and slave men and women, and has strived for the ideal of not discriminating against people on any grounds. To be able to help students observe certain issues, such as human rights, from multiple perspectives, religious education teachers are expected to continuously update their knowledge, both theological and interdisciplinary. Human dignity, to which human rights are linked in the secular human rights discourse as well, is seen in Christianity as a gift from God, the Creator, to all human beings, and should be realized in accordance with a relational structure that is an essential characteristic of a human being. The theological concept of human dignity is based on three components: the right to life as a core element of dignity and its source, freedom or autonomy, and equal respect, with the latter two components representing a further elaboration of the notion of dignity. Freedom protects the individual from both egalitarianism and collectivism, while equality protects society from social Darwinism. Since in the Christian view, human beings are relational, freedom is also relational, so the freedom of the individual correlates with the freedom of the community. Equality is a status given by God to all human beings and should be maintained regardless of differences. It also requires the removal of social barriers. The specific Christian contribution to the human rights discourse is that Christianity thus understands human dignity from the perspective of the organic unity of all the different dimensions of human life. This way, the Christian view finds different human rights that could be conflicting, as well as to connect the individual and communal dimensions of human life. Thank you very much.